In the late 1960s and 1970s, the land known today as Zimbabwe stood at the center of one of Africa's most intense liberation struggles. Then called Rhodesia, the country was ruled by a white minority government led by Ian Smith, who in 1965 declared a unilateral declaration of independence from Britain to preserve white minority rule. For the African majority, this declaration was a symbol of oppression. Land, political power, and economic control were largely concentrated in the hands of a small white population, while millions of black Africans were marginalized. But resistance was already growing. The rise of the guerrilla war, two major liberation movements emerged. The first was the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, whose armed wing, the Zimbabwe African National Liberation Army, ZANLA, was led politically by Robert Mugabe. The second was the Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, whose military force was the Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army, ZIPRA, under the leadership of Joshua Nkomo. Both movements sought the same goal, the end of white minority rule. Yet they differed in ideology, strategy, and international backing. ZANU received support primarily from China and mobilized fighters in rural areas, particularly among the Shona population. ZAPU, backed largely by the Soviet Union, organized more conventional military structures and drew strong support from the Ndebele population. By the early 1970s, guerrilla warfare intensified across the countryside. Young fighters crossed into Rhodesia from neighboring countries like Mozambique and Zambia, launching attacks on government forces, infrastructure, and white-owned farms. The Rhodesian military responded with brutal counterinsurgency tactics, including cross-border raids and harsh security operations. Villages were caught between guerrilla fighters and government troops. The war would become known as the Rhodesian Bush War, or the Second Chimurenga. By the late 1970s, the conflict had become unsustainable. International sanctions were crippling Rhodesia, the guerrilla movements were gaining strength, and pressure from neighboring African states was growing. The stage was set for negotiations. The birth of Zimbabwe in 1979, negotiations were held in London at the historic Lancaster House Agreement. The agreement brought together representatives of the Rhodesian government and the liberation movements. It laid the foundation for democratic elections and the creation of a new independent nation. In 1980, the country officially became Zimbabwe. The election was won by Robert Mugabe, whose party ZANU-PF gained overwhelming support. For many Zimbabweans, independence brought immense hope. The country inherited one of Africa's strongest economies. Its commercial farms produced abundant crops, its infrastructure was advanced, and its education system soon became one of the most successful on the continent. For a time, Zimbabwe appeared to be a model for post-colonial African development, early tensions and the Gukurahundi. However, beneath the surface, political tensions were already emerging. The rivalry between Mugabe's ZANU and Nkomo's ZAPU did not disappear after independence. In the early 1980s, accusations of dissent and rebellion in the Matabeleland region led Mugabe's government to deploy a special military unit known as the 5th Brigade. The resulting crackdown became known as Gukurahundi. Thousands of civilians, mostly from the Ndebele ethnic group, were killed in a brutal campaign that lasted several years.